I recently visited the UK's gaming Mecca, a city that not only has some of the best game shops, but also fantastic entertainment and a thriving community for gamers. In this video we're going to go game hunting, pay tribute to fallen stores of the past, recommend some venues to party in, and wrap up by taking a look at what I bought. There's some amazing surprises throughout, so keep your eyes peeled and try to guess what I picked up. The city in question is Norwich, Norfolk, and I have to admit I'm biased towards it as I grew up here, leaving for the other side of the country shortly after completing my bachelor's honours degree in Games Art and Design at Norwich University of the Arts. I still try to visit once every 6 months or so, as most of my friends and family still live here. In the decade and a half since I moved away, I've seen my old course go from being based out of 2 small rooms in this building to becoming Newar's most popular offering. With the University of East Anglia also in town, it's very much a student city, and it's not surprising that gaming is king here. Let's start with some shopping. Growing up, I could take my pocket money into town on a Saturday and, starting from Magdalen Street and finishing at St Stephen's, visit 20 different stores. I genuinely thought that was normal and took it for granted before moving to the southwest and realising most towns and cities struggle to have even one decent game shop. Sadly, Magdalen Street isn't what it once was. Norwich Gaming Engine, Swallow Games, and Cash Generator have all been gone for some time, with the most recent and biggest loss being Regenerating Gaming. Long story short, there were repeated severe water leaks in various shops in Anglia Square, leading to damaged stock, lost trading days, a dispute with the landlord, and ultimately the closure of stores including Regen. Sai, the owner, goes into more details in his Facebook videos. You can now find him just down the street in the top floor of Aladdin's Cave on Saturdays. Regrettably, I was in town from a Sunday evening to a Friday morning this time, so I didn't get a chance to visit. It's upsetting to see the current state of the square, especially the boarded up Hollywood Cinema, which once hosted the premiere for Alan Partridge's Alpha Papa. There have been numerous talks and plans of demolishing and redeveloping the square over the years, but nothing ever seems to come of it. Landlords don't want to renovate or repair buildings that might get torn down shortly, so the whole place has sadly been willingly left to rot. There was one pleasant surprise. Second-hand land was open. I'd been told this shop had closed after the owner retired, but it turns out that one of the people working for him picked up the torch and carried it on. They used to have a bigger store directly opposite, but I was still glad to see it here. Likewise, Beatniks, previously raised CDs, is still here and still thriving. They're primarily a vinyl and music store, but keep a small selection of games and graphic novels. You also can't go more than 5 feet in Norwich without finding a charity shop, and while the games are usually just Tat and FIFA, you never know. Always worth a look, just in case. Let's make our way up to St Benedict's, which has sort of become what Magdalen Street used to be for game hunting, hosting what is hands down the absolute best game shop in Norwich, Last Level Games. Run by Ed and Martin, Last Level is a small but mighty shop that's packed to the rafters with games from every era at very reasonable prices. Beyond that, they're great supporters of local gaming groups, events and conventions, having provided funding, consoles and advertising for them. They're also very friendly and talkative with a genuine passion for the medium. They know what they're talking about, what they're selling, and they can provide bespoke recommendations for your specific gaming tastes, helping you find new favourites. If you've only got time to visit one store when you're in Norwich, make Last Level your top priority. If you're not local, don't worry. They post photos of their current stock on Facebook, and they have been happy to post things out for me. We're not done with St Benedict's yet. You also have Cashmaker, a Tesco value version of Cash Converters, which itself is hardly a Waitrose in this bizarre comparison, that proudly displays its games in the centre of the store. Weirdly, it's practically next door to the real McCoy, although this Cash Converters seems to have massively reduced its gaming stock. I'm not sure if that holds true for the rest of the chain around the country, but it was shockingly slim pickings here. While we're here, there's also Albion Games, a gaming cafe. You might know it under its previous name, One Life Left, which closed to focus on events such as the OLL gaming convention I attended in April 2023. For comic fans, Abstract Sprocket is an amazing comic store and your one-stop shop for current releases, back issues, and trades. Norwich has a few other nerdy, gaming-adjacent stores, but we'd be here all day if I highlighted all of them. Moving closer to the city centre, we have to again pay respects to the fallen. Pottergate was once home to Chips, a decent and often forgotten chain that saw a good chunk of my money. Bedford Street, aka the back of Gerald's, once hosted One Step Beyond, which was the place for imports. I remember them having US versions of Pokemon Gold and Silver way before their UK release, and they stocked Dragon Ball Z Boo's Fury, aka Legacy of Goku 3, which never came to the UK. They had continued to exist as One Step Gaming as a stall in Norwich's famous market, but despite my best efforts, I couldn't find them during this trip. I'm hoping I just missed them and that their stall hasn't closed for good. Locals, please let me know in the comments below. You might be wondering why I'm showing you a Greggs Bakery. This used to be our main game, the UK's equivalent of GameStop. There used to be several game stores in the city, one on St Stephen's, which had previously been an electronics boutique, one at the entrance to Chantry Place, previously known as Chapelfield, and another inside Debenhams, which, if you live in England, you know the fate of. We have just the one left, and like most game stores, it resides within a Sports Direct in Chantry Place. It's still quite big and offers all of the latest releases. What you won't find is anything older than about 6 months, as Game, or rather its parent company, have made the ridiculously stupid decision to stop selling pre-owned games, their highest margin item, reportedly because they couldn't integrate their pre-owned system with Sports Direct's tills, and it required additional staff training. Unless you want a newly released title in hand today without waiting for the postman, and you're willing to pay more for that, there's now no reason to come here instead of ordering games online. Which is probably why game stores now give more floor space to tabletop games, toys, and trading cards than they do to the actual video games they're named after. Oh, and don't forget their belong areas, where you can rent out PCs by the hour to play games with your friends. As you can see from the footage, which granted was filmed on a Monday afternoon, it's very popular and an absolutely thriving arm of their business. I'm unsure why Mick Ashley of Sports Direct and Fraser's Group bought Game. They've shown no interest in the hobby, and their bizarre decisions since the buyout imply a lack of understanding of the market, audience, or products. I'm still sour about Game's buying and shuttering of Game Station. Ours used to be here in Castle Place, previously Castle Mall, and it was fantastic. I think the shop sat empty ever since. It's next to the site of an old multi-story Virgin Megastore where I'd had my first hands-on experience with the GameCube, being wowed by Rogue Leader. Don't underestimate the power of in-store kiosks and a good demo. It's sold me many a system over the years. HMV used to be opposite the market, but is now found just outside Sports Direct. HMV also used to sell games, and apparently they still do online, but you won't find any in store these days. Still, they've got lots of anime Blu-rays and graphic novels. In terms of square feet and sheer selection, CEX on St Stephen's Street is, somewhat sadly, now the biggest game shop in Norwich. What do you want me to say? It's a CEX. It's a big one, it's clean, the staff seem friendly enough, and the queues move at a surprisingly quick pace for this franchise, placing it as one of the better CEX stores in my experience. But condition, knowledge, and pricing are still as hit or miss as any CEX up and down the country, with me suspecting that some of their Super Nintendo cartridges might be reproductions. We do have one last shop to visit, however, Smith's Toys. This one requires a drive out to Longwater Retail Park, but is well worth it for its decent selection of newly released games and its masses of Pokemon, Mario, and Sonic toys. Smiths also have some surprisingly good deals and massive discounts on certain titles, so it's very much one to keep an eye on, effectively being our modern day Toys R Us. game hunting in Norwich isn't quite what it used to be. While some stores are still carrying the torch and doing us proud, especially last level, many have closed or downsized. That said, I did get a decent haul during my trip, which we'll take a closer look at towards the end of the video. And game hunting isn't the only thing that Norwich has to offer. Norwich has a lot of choices for gaming days and nights out. You have your basic Hollywood Bowl in Riverside, which has a pay-per-play arcade featuring a decent selection of racing titles and an amazing Jurassic Park rail shooter that's a siren song for nostalgic old sods like me. Well worth pumping a couple of credits into. Similarly, there's Super Bowl UK in Castle Place, but that's quickly overshadowed and outdone by Retro Replay one floor below it. Retro Replay hosts both arcade machines and home consoles. You pay £12 to get in, and that's it. There's a bar if you want a drink, but otherwise you just hand over the entry fee and enjoy any machine as they're all set to free play. There are some hard hitters here too, including the Turtles, Dance Dance Revolution, and Sega Rally. The other side has the consoles, although they are hidden behind what initially looks like a staff-only door near the bar, and they're the PAL 50Hz slower versions of the classics we grew up with. There's a Guitar Hero room with the console version of the game and the instruments, as well as my first experience with a Mega Play Sonic 1 cabinet. Going from Green Hill to Spring Yard, that was weird. It is amazing, but some of the machines are in need of maintenance. Regrettably, Time Crisis 2's Player 1 gun isn't calibrated properly, and the trigger gets stuck so it doesn't register every shot, and your bullets don't go where you're pointing. Thankfully, the Player 2 side is absolutely fine. House of the Dead 3's Player 2 side has a broken reload, so you're going to be playing that one entirely solo as well. The worst offender is Time Crisis 4, where Player 2's side has no picture, and Player 1's screen has a persistent dithering pattern and, again, a misaligned gun calibration. I did worry about how busy it was, or rather, wasn't. I went with 3 friends and we had the place to ourselves for pretty much the entire 4 hours they were open. We paid £12 each for entry, so £48, and we probably averaged 1 drink each at about £4, so another 16 to bring us up to £64 total. Huh, 64, that's a nice coincidence. Meanwhile, they had 2 staff members, even minimum wage is £10.42 for ages 23 and over, so being open for 4 hours costs £41.68 a head, £83.36 total. They're running nearly a £20 loss before accounting for the cost of powering the arcade cabinets, other utilities like water, the rent for the space, etc. That's without considering the funds and expertise needed for maintaining the machines, which I respect probably get absolutely hammered by some of their guests. I'm told it's much busier on the weekends, so hopefully they more than make up for it then and can stay open, as I do like the place despite my criticisms here. Finally, we have Barcadia, co-owned by YouTube's Nostalgia Nerd and Did You Know Gaming and Spriters Resources Daz. It's exactly what it sounds like, a pub with arcade machines. Barcadia automatically wins everything for having an original die-hard arcade cabinet, one of the best and most underappreciated games ever made, Fight Me. But continues its winning streak with proper ales and a delicious plant-based food menu. This was my main excuse for visiting my hometown. I had been invited to exhibit my solo dev indie game Crisis Island, please wishlist it on Steam, at Debug's Indie Showcase hosted by Barcadia. I had a great time catching up with Daz, seeing people play my game, and talking shop with the other developers. A huge thanks to Debug for inviting me to their event, and to Barcadia for hosting it. You can support Debug by buying their magazine over at teamdebug.com. They'll also have a presence at WASD in London this April, and the Nottingham Video Games Expo in July. I'll also be at NVGE showing Crisis Island again. This brings me nicely to my final point about Norwich, the community. Between the increasingly popular games art and design course, the indie games shops, Debug, Wave Game Studios, conventions including One Life Left, and multiple YouTubers such as Ashens being based there, not to mention the plethora of tabletop gaming venues, which are admittedly a little outside of my wheelhouse, Norwich has a pretty solid, close-knit gaming community where everyone's welcome. I haven't lived in the city for over 13 years now, but people still keep in touch, people still make the effort to say hi when I visit, and I'm surprisingly more in the loop about what's going on than I thought. I feel welcomed and loved every time I decide to pop back home for a few days, and it's increasingly evident that my soul needs it. It's fantastic nourishment for my sense of belonging, acceptance, and overall mental health and well-being. People could have reacted to my moving away for work with, well, forget you then, you traitor. Instead, they wished me luck, celebrated my successes, and they welcome me back anytime I want to visit. They're good people, and the one regret I have about moving is that I don't get to see them more often. Of course, the other side of the coin is distance makes the heart grow fonder, you take it for granted when it's on your doorstep, and we're not shy of making up for lost time when I am in town. I drank more ale in those 4 days than I did throughout all of 2023, and I'm sure you can hear the consequences in my voice right now. Okay, let's stop being soppy for a moment. What did I buy? Just so that you guys can live vicariously through me, I'm going to total this up on screen as I go. Let's start with Beatdown Fists of Vengeance for PS2. This is a 3D brawler with sprinklings of RPG and exploration elements that I first became aware of through my buddy Snakerer. It very much looked like my kind of thing, so when I saw a Facebook post from Last Level saying they'd had a copy come in, I messaged them immediately for pickup when I was next in town. Likewise, Crash Time 3 was another title I asked Ed and Martin to keep aside for me. A friend had described it as being a Eurojank Burnout clone, a sentence that did all of the right things for me, but I'm getting more of a classic Driver vibe from it, and in a very good way. Actually, make that a World's Scariest Police Chasers vibe, given we're playing as the police. Little tip, when you buy a used Xbox 360 game, you can very easily check whether the disc is okay by installing the game to the console's hard drive, which can also improve load times during gameplay and reduce wear and tear on your laser, as the Xbox won't have to read from the disc during play. Since getting home, I've learned that there are several entries in this series, with some of them getting pretty expensive. Thankfully, Crash Time 3 here is available on Steam for just £5.49 if you're interested. There's getting Driver vibes, and then there's outright buying a Driver game. Recent videos on Driver San Francisco by Mini-Me and Colorshed Productions has piqued my interest in the game, and while the Xbox 360 version is reportedly backwards compatible and the version to go for, I primarily play on PlayStation, and that's the version I found and saw during my visit, so yeah, very much looking forward to this one. Keeping with the car theme, here's Ridge Racer 5, a PlayStation 2 launch title. Sure, it's not Type 4, nothing is, but this is still a fun time. Bit of a weird one next, and I'm going to group these together. James Pond 2 Robocod on both PS1 and PS2. I grew up playing the Master System version of this game, and was surprised to find a Nintendo Switch port about a year ago. Since then, I've discovered the insane number of times this game has been re-released, with me tracking them down for a future video project. I'm also going to group the LEGO and Green Day editions of Rock Band together. What can I say? I like me some rhythm games. In the last video, where we looked around Trowbridge, I said I was on a kick of buying and playing these again, so here's 2 more entries. Next we have Headhunter and its sequel, Headhunter Redemption. I saw them together for £2 each. I've been meaning to play them for a while, so into my basket they went. Considering the Dreamcast version of Headhunter 1 sells for around £20, £2 for the PS2 version is an absolute no-brainer. I don't care about rarity or resale value. My wife and kids can do what they like with my games when I'm dead and gone. I care about being able to play the game, so a cheaper port is always a plus for me. Another batched pair, Iron Man 2 and 4 for the PS3. Sega made tie-in games for Phase 1 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and adding these 2 titles to my collection means I now own 4 out of the 5 games. I'm only missing their Hulk game, which, by many accounts, is the best one out of the set. This was a gift from my friend Mr. Terry Chaos. He knew I didn't have the PS2 version of Tomb Raider Legend, neither of us had seen it in a cardboard sleeve before, so when he saw this in Last Level a couple of weeks ago, he bought it for me and asked Ed to add it to my pile to collect during my visit. Let me know if you know anything about this sleeve in the comments. Was it a retailer or pre-order exclusive? I've never seen it before. Moving to more modern systems, we have Horizon Forbidden West. My son's playing through the original at the moment, and £20 for the PS5 sequel seemed like a good deal to me. Now, this is harder to justify. I already bought and paid for Sonic Frontiers digitally at launch, but with Smiths having reduced it to just £16, and no sign of an air quotes complete edition on the horizon, pun intended, I picked this up. I actually did the same for Sonic Colors Ultimate Edition when a B&M reduced it to £10 a couple of months ago. I'll probably never open either copy because I can play them both digitally, but I'm a simp for Sonic and I like having the hard copy for the shelf. What can I say? My final pickup from that there Norwich was this Metal Sonic Funko Pop. They release a plastic totem of my boy, I buy it. It's that simple of an impulsive reaction. I've also bought some other games the past month or so that have nothing to do with the Norwich trip, but I wanted to highlight them anyway. Hopping on the Bullet Time podcast to chat 007 Legends with Hot Cider had me in the mood for more Bond games, so I grabbed this set on eBay. I'm back on that podcast soon, we'll probably have recorded it before this goes live, to chat Urban Chaos Riot Response, Rocksteady's only non-Batman game, so I found myself a copy to play through. Listen to the Bullet Time episode for my full thoughts, but hot damn, this is a fun game that I wish I'd known about sooner. I definitely need to calm down for a bit now. There's more than enough games to last me the year here, and I still have both WASD in London this April and the Nottingham Video Games Expo in July to pay for. While game hunting in Norwich isn't quite what it used to be, the city is still unbeatable in terms of not only shopping, but entertainment and community events. If you're a gamer in the UK, or if you're visiting the UK from elsewhere, you need to spend at least a day in Norwich just having a great time. Unless, of course, you know somewhere better. I really enjoyed seeing everyone's comments in the last video, reminiscing about your favourite stores, hangouts, and memories of those times and places. Does Norwich deserve the crown, or is there a contender I need to visit? Meanwhile, consider sharing the video around and joining my Patreon, just like the Amazing Crow, Tiny Jericho, Mr. Terry Chaos, Ducky Go, Francis T218, and Deliberator have. In addition to early scripts and audio for videos, they also got early access to the demo of Crisis Island that I showed at the debug event. There's also over 10 years worth of videos on this channel for you to enjoy, with a couple being recommended on screen right now. So, take a look around. It's Limp Bizkit fucking up your town. Sorry, I don't know where that came from. I'm sure you'll find more viewing that you'll enjoy.